Shout out Holly Kleppner, though, for trying to fix the bullying situation here.
This is the Man Cave Podcast.
The Cleveland Browns will be in the Super Bowl.
Giannis is the greatest basketball player of all time.
Friends is not a good TV show. Welcome back to the Man Cave Podcast, where we talk all things sports, fitness, and just life. Now, I know what y'all might be thinking. It's a Tuesday. Why are we posting a video? Well, we got some big news to discuss.
Jake Paul has just defeated Tyron Woodley by split decision.
That's some big news, and we were going to talk about it. We're going to give our post-fight analysis, breakdown, our opinions on it, and this possible rematch that might happen.
We'll get to that at a later point, but I want to start with the most exciting part of the fight, being Tyron Woodley's non-knockdown on Jake Paul.
In what? That was in the fifth round?
I think it was the fourth
round, yes.
I think it was the fourth.
Because rounds 1 through 3, really, Tyron Woodley was doing nothing.
For the majority of the fight, I'd say Tyron was doing nothing.
He was doing more pushing forward.
Right.
But yeah, that fourth round...
The fourth round, I thought, that was the turning point. Watching it live, I thought that was the turning point where Woodley just turns it up on him.
Yeah, that was the one round that Woodley clearly won, I would say. Because even after that, he went back to his rounds 1 through 3 where he was pushing but not attacking.
He pushed the pace, but then did not throw punches, and it's something that he kind of was known for
in the UFC.
Well, after he lost his championship, he never had a gas
pedal. Near the end of his UFC career.
Right. People always said he was stuck in neutral. He never just pushed,
And once you're in the UFC, once you hit that, it's only a short while, then you're gone. You got to be pushing forward.
It's very easy to fall off a cliff.
I think we saw in the post-fight analysis that Tyron Woodley only had 44 jabs?
Yeah.
And
in boxing, you got to throw the jabs.
And I think Jake Paul had over 200, and that was pretty much the tail of the tape right there. Is that the entire match, Jake Paul was the aggressor, even though Tyron Woodley was the one pushing.
Right,
which is weird.
Jake Paul was the aggressor while backpedaling, which really doesn't make any sense.
You made a great point while we were watching it that Jake Paul was hitting most of his shots on the back foot.
Right, and I mean he's not going to get much power off of him off the back foot, but. He was getting
the one
quantity
thing
over
Tyron
quality.
Woodley kept talking about, before the fight started, was how much he respected Jake Paul's power in his right hand, especially.
Right.
Didn't say much about the left hand, but he specifically said that his right hand definitely has some power, and we saw that at times, especially later in the rounds, when Jake Paul was especially getting tired. He was going for more blows, but he was missing a lot. But he hit a couple. But yeah, that one in the fourth round, that was definitely the turning point for Tyron Woodley, and I wish he would have capitalized right after that, because that could have easily been the end of the round.
And I think it not being ruled a knockdown kind of plays a big part in the way the judges scored it, because if you rule that a knockdown, it could easily be a 10-8 round for Woodley, which completely changes the entire scorecard. And
the scorecard was definitely controversial. We were getting into that in a little bit. Especially you have some opinions on that.
Yeah, I'm pretty heated about that.
Honestly, I'm kind of happy Jake Paul won because I won $20. I had a bet with one of my people I work with, and the one thing I did tell him was he's going to pay for my haircut on Saturday. And now I ain't got to pay for my haircut. So, Jake Paul, thank you. But yeah, I personally think the judges did it right. I think that it was scored correctly. I think when I watched it, Jake Paul was the aggressor and throwing more punches, landing more punches. And, I think I saw at the end, Jake Paul had 22 body shots to Tyron Woodley's 6. He threw way more punches, even though it was, in the end, it was pretty close, percentage-wise.
Right.
I think Jake Paul was the aggressor, and I think that's why he won the match.
Right. When you look at the punches after the fact, it definitely favors Jake Paul heavily. And I wouldn't even disagree that I believe Jake Paul won the fight. But when you watch it and you see Tyron Woodley constantly walking him down, it's hard to...
It's weird.
It's hard to say somebody clearly won the fight when they are constantly backing up.
That's true. But at the same time, Tyron Woodley's pushing forward. He's got to punch.
Right.
He's got to strike.
I agree.
And he didn't. The entire match, most of the match, he was just standstill. He was just, I don't know, I don't think he knew what he wanted to do.
He was in neutral. I agree.
Just like his end of his UFC career. And, Jake Paul, the one thing you can't say about him is he ain't neutral. He's looking for the knockout. And this is his first match. Like, he said it at the post game that this is his first match that he's gone past like the second round, I think.
Right. That's right.
And he was gassed. You could tell he was gassed.
Yeah, it definitely showed after about round 3 or 4. He was breathing heavy whenever the camera would pan up close to him in the corner. He was panting heavy. He still was throwing heavy punches, I believe,
consistently.
Yeah, so I'll give him that, but
I think
his biggest problem is his cardio.
Yeah, and I think with more experience, and now that he has an 8-round fight under his belt, I think it's going to help him realize how much cardio does play a factor in the boxing world. Because he's still new. He's still new to the boxing world.
Right. Only his 4th fight, so...
4th fight professionally.
Right.
Now, I guess that kind of moves us into the potential rematch. They talked about it in the post game, and at first we were watching. I thought Jake Paul was done. He was talking about how he wanted to take a break.
Yeah, he started talking how he wants.
He started preaching.
He wants to work on himself. How he wants bullying to stop around.
I don't know what that was.
I mean, it's a good message, but you can't just say stop bullying and expect that to work.
Yeah, we've had plenty of Oveus meetings at our school, and they're still bullying.
Right. I mean, shout
out to Holly Kleppner though for trying to fix the bullying situation here at Musselman High School. She's doing a great job. But, it was really weird. He almost kind of sounded like a retirement speech, the way it sounded like. He's got 4 fights on his belt, and he's already ready to retire. And then out of nowhere, when it was Woodley's turn to talk, he's talking about a rematch, and then Jake Paul is all over it.
Right. So I think, personally, a rematch only benefits Tyron Woodley. I don't think he has anything to lose at this point, considering he just lost it all.
I think he was down for it, though. The only thing was that Jake Paul said he would do a rematch if he gets the tattoo.
I really do not.
I love Jake Paul.
Yeah, I do not want Tyron Woodley to get this tattoo. It's honestly just a...
I think he should get it right on his butt cheek. I think that would be nice. I think that would fit.
I mean, you can get tattoos covered up, so I guess it wouldn't be the end of the world, but if you get the tattoo and Jake Paul says, never mind, at that point... Jake Paul has beat you. I don't think Jake Paul's going to do that.
I think he would clearly, because he was completely down for it. Like, he was down for it. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I think, would you want to see a rematch?
I want to see a rematch where Woodley wins. I don't want to see a rematch where Jake Paul wins. So
2-0. I want to see a 12-round rematch. I want to see.
I think
this one went to 8 rounds, and you could tell Jake Paul was getting gassed, and I think that 8 round was perfect for him.
Right.
So I want to see these go to 12 rounds and see what happens. Because he was definitely feeling the effects. In the post game, he was like saying how he played off. I said he was a little tired, but you could definitely tell he was gassed.
So we got what you want, but do you think it would be smart for Jake Paul, like from Jake Paul's perspective, to give him a rematch?
Sure, why not? He already beat him once. Get more of a bag. He's got all the confidence now. He's gonna see that tattoo, possibly on his leg. Butt cheek. He already wants to grab the butt cheeks. He already wants to grab them cheeks. Yeah. And now he might have a tattoo on that butt cheek. So, Jake Paul is going to have all the confidence. His team is going to be confident. Why not? Get more of a bag, man. Why not?
I think if Jake Paul wants to take this boxing, career seriously, he shouldn't. He should move on to
that's right.
an amateur. But Tyron Woodley, well... I want to see him fight Tommy Fury, but I don't think that's a smart idea for Jake Paul.
Is Tommy nice?
Tommy's nice. Tommy is on the come up, and it's not really a surprise. I mean, it's Tyson Fury's son, nephew, something like that. He's related to Tyson Fury.
Jake Paul's the problem child, though. You know that.
Okay. I mean, I counted Jake Paul out against Tyron Woodley.
His dad had the jersey. Speaking of his dad, it was just funny to me seeing Jake Paul's dad resign him. He's like 50 years old, 60 years old, and he's got anger issues. I don't know if you... I used to watch, the Logan Paul vlogs. Never Jake Paul, but I remember just, they always would talk... I also watched, their podcasts, and they always talk about him. He's, crazy.
Yeah,
so it's just funny. And then I saw that Tyron Woodley's mom and then Jake Paul's dad. They like hugged it out and stuff, which was cool. What you think about the Cleveland thing that he had on? Yeah, when he came walking out, he was wearing a shirt that had all the Cleveland teams on it, which was pretty cool. I like that. I mean, playing into the hometown kid role.
Yeah, I'm not really a Cleveland fan, but I'm sure if I was from Cleveland, if I liked Jake Paul, I'm sure it would have been pretty cool. But
and then Logan Paul also had a Cleveland jersey on, which was tough.
If we're going to talk drip, we have to talk about Tyron Woodley's shorts. The white and the pink, they just accented each other so well.
Yeah, they were nice. It was the one
perfection.
Difference, Tyron's was like way shorter, and Jake Paul's, they were all the way below his knee, which ain't even a thing no more. No one does that no more, but I like Jake Paul's. They were the bright neon.
Jake Paul's, I thought were a bit much. I mean, I didn't like anything Jake Paul did, to be fair.
His team kind of looked like they were a boy band. A Backstreet Boys kind of thing.
Yeah, it was definitely flashy.
There's bright orange jumpsuits, but it was flashy.
He had the Jake Paul going across the waistband of his shorts.
Yeah, he's had that, I think, every single Friday he's had, which is cool. Okay. Another thing was that Dave Chappelle was there.
Yeah,
there were a couple of celebs.
They drew a lot of celebrities, mainly boxers and MMA fighters.
I think it pretty much sold out.
And it's really no surprise when you have a big UFC name with Tyron Woodley and then
Jake Paul.
Jake Paul, one of the most well-known social media influencers in the world. And according to Jake Paul, I don't know if it's true or not, but Logan actually had the most pay-per-view sales
of the year.
And Jake was second with this one last night.
Obviously, Logan Paul facing Mayweather earlier in the year. Right. He said that in the post game. Maybe it's true. I don't know. Really didn't fact check it, but I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. But honestly, I'm kind of glad that Jake Paul won, in my opinion, because I think it's just funny. I think the old heads are baffled. They don't know what to think.
I think it's a bad look for MMA, but it really shouldn't be, because boxers box and MMA fighters do more than box. So, I mean, MMA fighters aren't going to be as good at boxing as boxers, but boxers aren't going to be as well-rounded as MMA fighters are. So it's a bad look for MMA fighters when it really shouldn't be.
I think Jake Paul, he's just Jake Paul. I ain't sure he's a boxer or fighter or what. He's just Jake Paul. And he's just getting his bag. And honestly, he's doing pretty good. He's a good fighter. And this showed. He went 8 rounds with a former 3-year-long UFC champion. You can't deny the fact that he fought well. So did Woodley. But Jake Paul ultimately did enough to win.
I will say I believe this fight was more Woodley losing the fight than Jake Paul winning. But I can't sit here and take everything away from Paul. He did surprise me in the first 3 rounds. He looked pretty well. The rest of the fight he was tired.
He had some sprinkles in the last couple of rounds, and he did enough in like rounds 6, 7, 8, and especially 8. He had some nice returns. But ultimately, it was like we said earlier. Tyron Woodley was backing him down and just not finishing it. And I don't know why. And that's something, if they have a rematch, that he's going to look back and say, okay, I had him throughout the entire match. I didn't capitalize on it.
Well, you'd think he'd realize that, but, I mean, he never realized it apparently from his UFC days, his MMA days.
Think it's a mental thing?
I mean, it could be. Maybe he's got a bad corner who tells him he's winning and he should just be in neutral, and he goes out and tries to just coast to the finish.
It's like in baseball when a player forgets how to throw. It's called the yips.
Right.
You think he's got something like that where he just has lost a little confidence?
I think
he's into the rapping thing now.
I think maybe that's what it started out as once he lost to Kamaru Usman when he lost his title, and then I think eventually it just turned into him not being who he once was. So,
yeah, I mean he's almost 40, and honestly, I was seeing the tail of the tape. At the beginning, Jake Paul had the height, the reach, the weight, the age. Obviously, the record being 3-0, and Tyron Woodley was 0-0. But ultimately, I think you might be right that Tyron Woodley was more losing the match, and Jake Paul didn't win it. Right. But we still can't take away the fact that Jake Paul went 8 rounds with a legit fighter.
Right. I mean, I've sitting here and trashed him for the past 15 minutes now, but he won the fight. So
Now, don't get us wrong.
Say?
Ben Askren is a legit fighter, but he ain't a striker.
Right. I don't think anybody really had high expectations for Askren. But one more thing I'd like to say about Jake Paul is that he kind of reminds me of the later stages of Conor McGregor's career, where he may not be the best
Jake
fighter.
Paul does?
Yeah. He not necessarily because of his fighting ability, but his ability to sell a pay-per-view and how I believe he is just overall a dirtbag. Yeah, just being a dirtbag in order to sell pay-per-views. And I mean,
that's just Jake Paul though. He's always, ever since his YouTube days. I remember when he was on Team 10, he kind of just like all of those members he kind of just like ditched.
Right.
So that's just him. He ain't the best person, but at the end of the day, he's selling pay-per-views.
Yeah,
and
he's making more money than us. So.
He's bringing more people to boxing. And, boxing's kind of been dying off recently.
Right. This is big for boxing in general because over the past few years, MMA and the UFC and even Bellator has just taken over the fight game. So this is good to see for the boxing world.
Now, this is kind of off topic because we talked about it earlier. But that, Tommy Fury?
Tommy Fury, right?
Is he a boxer?
He is a boxer. Yeah.
Full-time boxer?
He is an actual boxer. He's not a MMA fighter.
So that might be the next. I think that needs to be the next target.
He actually fought on the main card.
The card, yeah. He won. He won
and then called out Jake Paul.
And then they met each other in the hallway.
Right.
And they had a little thing going on. What do you think would happen in that fight if that does happen?
I think Tommy Fury knocks Jake Paul out. I have no doubt about that. But I don't think it's a smart fight for Paul to take, and I think he might realize that. I don't know if Jake Paul would ever take that fight.
Because Tommy Fury ain't going to sell pay-per-views either.
Well, yeah, that's fair. But I believe Jake Paul is enough to sell pay-per-views.
Yeah.
So I don't know if he's willing to just use his name and then lose.
Yeah, not make as much money and probably lose.
Exactly.
Because all these past fights with Ben Askren, he was able to sell a little bit. Not as much because Askren really kind of stays out of that.
Right.
With this fight, Tyron Woodley, he did a terrible job promoting, but you said earlier when it was just you and me talking, his name alone.
Yeah, just being Tyron Woodley. Now, Tommy Fury is still young though, so he has time to build up a name. Well, I don't know what he really would classify as, but he's still young, so he has time to build up a name, build up a brand.
And eventually
take on Jake Paul.
So maybe Jake Paul does retire. That's what he was talking about. If this rematch doesn't happen, maybe he does take a break. I don't see it happening.
Honestly, if I'm Jake Paul, I'm retiring today. There's no more reason for him to fight. Besides him just wanting to fight, which is it's a good thing. He's got a love for the game. I don't see a real reason for him to fight other than that.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I know nothing about this Tommy Fury, just that, he's ready to some out of Tyson Fury, and like he said, he's a good boxer. So if Jake Paul does have an eventual next fight, I would like seeing it with him because, he's beaten a wrestler in Ben Askren. Now he's beaten Tyron Woodley, which is, a lot better than he's ever faced.
Right.
But he was still a UFC fighter. So now it's time for him to face a boxer. Whether that's an up-and-coming amateur, whether that's Tommy Fury, or someone else, we'll have to wait and see. But for now, I guess it's just waiting on this rematch and this possible tattoo that he might get.
Yeah,
that's really what might have the rematch or not. You think he's gonna get the tattoo?
I think he will. In that post-fight interview, I mean, he seemed so adamant he wanted this rematch,
which was weird because
it could have been a rush of adrenaline. He knew he won and then he lost. So
what's confusing again is he wanted the rematch so bad, so you could tell he wanted it, but throughout the match, it was up and down if he wanted it or not because he just didn't know.
I think that is just his style of fighting at this point, and it's kind of
you gotta accept.
It's sad to say, but I think that is his style of fighting. It's not that his heart or his head is not there.
It's just how he is now.
Yeah, that's just his
getting
way.
Older. I guess that pretty much wraps it up. I guess we just gotta wait for this rematch possibly.
Gotta wait and see how everything unfolds.
Yes, sir. And in the meantime, we'll be waiting, and it. As soon as it happens, we'll be right there to give you all the news. thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to check out the normally scheduled podcast coming out on Friday at midnight. And yeah, thanks for watching. Peace.
Thanks for listening to this emergency edition of the Man Cave Podcast. Tune in this Friday for your regularly scheduled episode.